The next time you're in the woods and you want a quick fire to cook on, try a Swedish torch. Split around into quarters, remove the center, place them back together, light a small fire in the middle. They'll feed off of one another. And with the addition of a few small rounds of green wood, you'll have a perfect place to set your pan. When you're done with cooking, just knock the fire apart and you can use it again next time. I spend a lot of nights in the woods, sleeping on what most people would consider to be a very uncomfortable surface. But I sleep soundly because I'm acclimated to it. I find that it takes about 3 days for your body and your mind to acclimate to sleeping on hard surfaces. So, about 3 days before I go out on one of these trips, I simply sleep on the floor. Then, when I get in the woods, I'm sleeping perfectly from night one.
Oh, that's gonna be so nice. That's gonna be so nice.
There are a lot of different ways to find north without a compass, but one of the simplest is to use a stick. On a sunny day, place a stick in the ground so it stands upright. Mark the end of the shadow with another stick. Wait a few hours and mark the end of the shadow again. And if we take a stick and go across from our original point to this point, this is going to give us east-west. And of course, perpendicular to that is north and south. Many survival and bushcraft videos only show people starting fires with ferro rods, as if that's the only proper way to make a fire in the woods. Now, ferro rods definitely have their place. They're waterproof and they will work in any conditions. But when it comes right down to it, it's hard to beat a bick. All right, so I've got a ferro rod in here, but I also have a lighter in my pocket. So I'm just going to use the lighter. Simple, easy, effective. Oh, feels amazing. Now don't get me wrong. They do have their downsides. One of which is that they can run out of fuel. The other is that if they get wet, they're just not going to work until they dry out. But they weigh almost nothing, so stick one in your pocket or throw one in your pack for next time you're in the woods. Wrap a little duct tape around the handle and you've got some ready-made fire starter and any of the other 1,000 uses for duct tape. When you're out on a long hike or the weather is extremely cold, finding a food that's dense enough to keep your energy up can be a bit of a challenge. For me, pemmican is my go-to. Nutritious, calorie-dense, easy to pack, and easy to make yourself. I'll link to another video where I show the entire process. Duct tape has 1,001 uses, and I always have it with me when I'm in the woods. But in cold weather, it doesn't always want to stick very well. The secret is to warm it up, and that makes it a lot more sticky. That way, you can patch up the mouse hole that you missed before you came out into the woods.
I'll be there 5 years from now. I think that one's been there for about that long.
At some point, even the best made knives need a little touch-up. But oftentimes, it's not a honing stone that you need, but simply a strop. Typically, a strop would be made from leather, and in a pinch, you can use your belt. But even if you don't have a leather belt, you can still achieve the same effect by stropping your knife on a piece of soft wood. This realigns the steel on the knife's edge, and as long as it's not too far gone, can often bring it back to shaving sharp. If you happen to have some clay or silt handy, you can use it as buffing compound to make your strop even more effective. A good axe is one of those tools that every outdoorsman should own. Here's some tips for keeping that edge razor sharp. And you should feel a little burr that's sticking down, and your finger, it should be dragging across your finger, and I can feel that all the way along the bottom edge of this. Now we're going to flip it over and do the other side. And now we're just going to work that burr back and forth until it's completely gone. Oh yeah. From dull to shaven sharp, you could slice tomatoes with this thing. In regions where only softwoods are available for campfires, keeping coals overnight can be a bit of a challenge. I solved this problem by placing green wood or a half-rotted stump on the fire before I go to bed. This will cause the fire to smolder all night long. So the next morning, you simply put a little kindling on there and blow it back into flame. This is also a great way to keep a fire going through a heavy rain or a thunderstorm.
Was that fun? No.
In some regions, ticks can be a menace. To keep them at bay, I treat my clothing with something called permethrin. Follow the directions, and one application will keep you tick-free for the entire season. I always keep a few lightweight carabiners attached to my pack. They're useful for attaching things to the outside, but what they're really for is making a block and tackle for hanging my bag in bear country or moving big critters when I'm by myself.
Now, elk are just big animals, and so a little mechanical advantage helps a lot, especially when you're by yourself.
For the ultimate in lightweight cooking, leave the pots and pans at home and simply lay fish or even steaks right on the coals. There's no cleanup, and you can impress your friends with how savage you are.
Peter, come here, get some of this.
Kydex knife sheaths make great platforms for carrying other items. I find myself duct taping things like ferro rods and small fishing kits to mine all the time. You never know when they might come in handy. Splitting kindling is one of those things that we often do without thinking about it, but it can actually be quite dangerous. The safest way to split kindling with a hatchet or an axe is to hold the kindling in the same hand, like I'm showing here. This is a very controlled method. It works quite well, and there's no way to cut yourself. If you need a little extra warmth to get you through a cold night, try heating up rocks next to the fire. Place them around your body, and they will retain heat for a long time. A large rock heated by the fire and placed in the toe of your sleeping bag will oftentimes still be warm the next morning.
You can just put them anywhere that there's a lot of blood flow, like stick them up underneath your armpits, kind of in between your legs, up in your crotch, places like that, because that blood will take that heat from the rock, and as it circulates through your body, it just kind of distributes it.
Warm rocks can also be used to dry out wet boots. Place a few warm stones in the toe of the boots, or just take shoes or boots and set them on top of a warm rock overnight.
This fire goes out, I'll take these rocks and I'll just set my shoes on top of them as long as they're not too hot. Same with the socks, and hopefully drive some of this moisture off tonight. They're completely dry this morning.
If you use this technique, just make sure the rocks aren't too hot so you don't burn yourself or your gear. If you find yourself in the North Woods with a bit of an appetite but no weapon, you can sometimes catch grouse with a snare. And if you decide you're not hungry after all, you can always let them go. When learning any new skill, I find it best just to jump in and learn as you go.
Put it in reverse.
But your spouse might not agree, so it's best to develop some patience beforehand.
Don't run into that stick. First time driving the boat. Point that way.
Mom wrecked into a tree. Shut up. Don't ever do that. You need to give me a boat lesson before.
She wrecked into a tree?
I didn't know. I took us under a flipping tree. I didn't
What?
wreck into a tree.
If you enjoy making your own jerky, but you're up for a change, try biltong. It's easy to make yourself, you don't need any specialized equipment, and in my opinion, it's far, far better.
So resin is the sticky stuff that a pine or other conifers exude to seal wounds and help protect themselves from insect and disease. It also happens to be one of the most useful items that you're going to find in the woods. And to make a fire starter, all you got to do is combine this with some sort of dry fibrous material. And so wood shavings like this work great, dry grass works great, and you just take this stuff, put it in there and just kind of mix it up. Get all that wood shavings or whatever you're using just kind of saturated in that resin that's left over.
When you're driving in the winter woods, always have a saw, a shovel, a jack, and a come-along. You never know when you might need them. If you're looking for yet another reason to hunt with a stick bow, consider that you always have a monopod for stabling up those binos. And finally, when camping with kids, marshmallows, chocolate, and a few graham crackers goes a long way for taking their mind off a long, hard day.